Hello, everyone. It's Friday. That means it's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have you. For those of you that are continuously, listening to our podcast, our video, our show, whatever you want to call it, we really appreciate it.
It feels like it's been a long time since we've had one of these. Did we miss a week? I think we missed
I,
a week, didn't we?
I think we missed two actually.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
It's been a while. It's been about 2 weeks since we've had the last one. It's been there's a lot going on, but we're
Yeah.
back. we're back, and we're thankful for everyone that's sticking with us. So, Nadine, I want to talk about something that's happened recently. Um, of course, it had to do with security, but this was a very interesting thing that happened. So essentially, a young lady by the name of Paige Thompson, she was working for AWS. She was able to, now this is what's crazy about it. She was able to develop a tool that scanned accounts. Um, I guess they were misconfigured or whatever the case may be. And then she was able to access uh, these accounts, Capital One accounts, pull money from them. And, I think she did a crypto mining software that would take whatever money she made and put it in crypto. It was just whole crazy thing, that was going on. And I know you've really been since the beginning have been talking about how to prevent stuff like this from happening. And somehow Capital One um, got caught with their pants down, and this person was able to leverage that. And I think she made some pretty good money. The bad guys are always making money. Go figure. But I want to talk more about that because I know you've talked about that so many times, keeping an eye on these type of things, and it's still happening.
Yeah, it's not a matter of keeping an eye on these things. It's a matter of misconfigurations.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, like back in the day, I forget the exact date, but Netflix had an outage because the way they had their infrastructure configured was very prone to if one region went offline, the whole thing would shut down.
Mm.
And most cloud providers will give you documentation on how to create scalable, secure, but infrastructure that's not prone to outages when certain regions go offline. And the problem that happens, and I see this all the time, is usually people who are building these cloud infrastructures for companies like Capital One or Netflix or whatever have you. Now Netflix is not so much, but Capital One, yeah, they have a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
A lot of their infrastructure people are from from the time when people had internal servers in their own data centers, and they did not design the systems where a third party was involved in overseeing the infrastructure. Like in this case, it happened to be Amazon AWS, and that's just one of the things that changed so dramatically, so fast when cloud technologies came to be that you have to build security and resiliency in your apps, right? You can't go on the notion of that, hey, it's on my server, nobody else has access to it, or it's sitting over here and that's it. Nobody's going to have access to it. Because when you talk about virtual servers or cloud servers, the infrastructure is actually being managed by somebody else. Now, most cloud companies out there will say, hey, you should encrypt your data, you should encrypt your drives. But a lot of times, uh, admins will not do it. And that's what happened in this case is, if you don't have encryption, then somebody else at the cloud provider can gain access to your data. And this was kind of like low hanging fruit. It's uh, and yeah, she, so this lady made, I don't know if I want to call it lady, but this hacker made money. But the thing is, if convicted, and which she was convicted, she could get up to 20 years in prison. So I don't know if it paid off or not for her. I'm not sure, but the thing is, it's the did anybody hold the designer of this infrastructure accountable?
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they got fired. I don't have the details on that, but the thing is, somebody dropped the ball when they were designing the infrastructure, how they were going to design it. Like recently, I was involved in a consulting position for a financial company to design their online presence, their cloud servers. They have some applications that run in the cloud, and the design itself, what they had suggested, their guys did not have a clue about encryption and why they would want to encryption at several levels, right? So they have SQL servers. So in the design, we made sure that they were not only encrypting the data while in transit, while at rest in the SQL server, but also while that data is sitting in the drive as well. So we had encryption at several levels. And what that does is it throws roadblocks to hackers. So even if they get past one layer, there's other layers that will prevent them. And the harder it is for a hacker to get into your system, they're going to find an easier target. There's always an easier target out there. In this case, it just happened to be that Capital One was an easier target, and she was able to exploit that. But where am I getting with this? This issue happens when your resources that are at the design phase are not they don't understand cloud infrastructure, right? So um, they're coming from a traditional infrastructure environment, and they just got thrown into this new cloud infrastructure, and now they're just doing their best to kind of figure out how to get things rolling. So what's going to happen, the ultimate outcome is going to be you're going to be less secure, you're going to be less resilient. So because the way the cloud works is you have to build resiliency into your app as opposed to relying on the resiliency of the hardware, because the cloud systems will, what I call, auto magically uh, load balance and uh, move between regions as long as your app can accommodate for that, right? So the idea is, if you're cloud based, not only are you going to be more secure, but you're also going to be more resilient. So much so that if one entire region went offline, your application should not see that. Your application should not have to worry about a region going offline. And a good example is a few years ago when the San Antonio data center for Azure, for Microsoft Azure, went offline. There were so many applications, and I think that's when Netflix had an outage because they did not design their infrastructure correctly to where when one region went offline, that was their sole hub for their AD authentication. So everything broke, right? And there was an outage for, I think, about a day or so. That shouldn't happen in a cloud environment as long as the guys designing it know what they're doing. So it's very important to get cloud engineers with cloud expertise on your design team when you begin designing these applications, as opposed to on the tail end when you've already designed and deployed and now you bring somebody else in. That's too far along. The water's already past your head, and you're already in trouble. So that's and I quote these issues that have happened, the San Antonio outage, the AWS outage to customers where they are thinking of now deploying into the cloud. Is you have to go in with a different mindset. You cannot be in the traditional IT mindset and be designing applications for the cloud, because it's like it's very different. It's like driving a car versus sailing a boat versus flying a plane. They're very different technologies. I mean, you can't. You might be a very good car driver, but that doesn't mean you're a very good sailor, and that doesn't mean you can fly a plane very good.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, technologies are just that different. At the end of the day, it's yeah, it's all computing, but that's like, it's just living. If somebody came to Earth and they said, well, get a human to drive this car. Well, that human may not be able to drive a car. That human may be just a very good pilot, or just get this human to sail this boat. Well, you have to know what kind of human. You need a sailor, not just any human. And that's how different the designs are, going between traditional infrastructure to cloud-based technologies. I mean, the world's just changing so fast, and when we talk about these cloud technologies, and just within the cloud itself, technology is changing so much so fast. Like when we deploy apps, so we'd like to script out everything that we deploy as much as we can. Our scripts within a 30-day time frame have to be updated to accommodate for new technology, new syntax. It's changing that fast. I mean, within a 30-day period, things change to where our scripts don't do the right things. They break because technology has changed. And that's a good thing, right? That's great to have, because you want to have that pace of change. But somebody once said that Moore's law does not apply; it's dead. It's very much alive. I mean, it's actually kicked into high gear. It's very interesting times to be alive in. But from an enterprise perspective, you have to make sure that you have the right resources in place.
Agreed. Great. And the funny thing about this whole case, Nadeem, and this is just a side note to what you've been saying, she was trying to make herself look like she was an ethical hacker. That she did this, and it's weird. She put like all this information on GitHub, and but yet and still she was just trying to. She said, or she was trying to portray it. I don't know if it's she or he, whatever, but I was doing this for the good of whatever. So I thought that was actually quite hilarious, but not to take away from what Nadeem is saying, because yeah, not only are the bad guys are getting more complex and all of that other good stuff, but from what I'm seeing, it seems like companies, the cutting of corners, if you will, that a lot of companies are trying to do, in order to save a buck. It's big companies, small companies, whatever. It's starting to bite businesses in the butt. So you got the hackers that are improving, and improving exponentially with different degrees of how to get into these businesses and get sensitive information. And then you have the companies that are trying to save a buck and aren't protecting themselves, and you get what you get. So some of these business owners, you're gonna have to think like, hey, it's my sensitive information. More importantly, my livelihood worth me saving a couple bucks. Yeah, that's just my thought on that.
Yeah. So there is a fine line between an ethical hacker and an unethical hacker, or an ethical hacker and just a hacker, right? So in this case, she not only hacked the system, but she made money off of it.
A lot of money.
Right. So an ethical hacker would not have hacked the system. They would have identified the vulnerability and told the company, hey, you have this vulnerability, fix it before somebody takes advantage of this. So there is a fine line. You don't have to break the law to tell somebody that they have a vulnerability. You can tell them that, and actually companies will pay money for you to tell them that they have a vulnerability, right? There's bounties out there, so companies will pay you good money for that. But instead, she chose the road of hacking and transferring funds without approval or authority. So that's how this comes about. But I think we're only going to see more and more of stuff like this happening, just because there are a lot of companies that want to go to the cloud, and they do go to the cloud, but then they do it without without the proper resources in place, without the proper expertise in place. And maybe the problem is that there is not that much cloud expertise to go around, but
That could
I
be
think
it
there is.
also.
I think there is. I think at the end of the day, what's happening is people have resources in their company, and they're like, well, let's just use our resources that we have instead of having to bring a specialist in, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's more of a cost issue than a skill set availability issue. So,
Mm,
but yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about moving to the cloud, make sure you have the right resources in place and design your systems. Get cloud expertise involved at the design stage as opposed to bringing them in at the end once it's all designed and deployed. Because by that time it's already too late. It's going to cost a lot more to break things down and rebuild them as opposed to just build them right the first time.
Edgar. Yeah, agreed.
So Mac, I think with that we'll call it a day. Um, I know we haven't done a recording in a while, but let's try to get the next one in on time as well. Let's let's get on the schedule.
Let's get on this. Absolutely.
All right, everyone, have a great day and be safe out there.
Guys, how we going? Bye.